Hello and welcome to episode 276 of the Board Game Barrage podcast. I am Mark the Green Tank, and I'm joined, as always, by Kellen the Red Tank.
Yo, yo.
On the shores of Los Angeles, and on the shores of South Africa, we've got Neelan the Orange Tank.
Hello.
You're on the shoreline, right, Neelan?
Yeah, I mean, more or less. I mean, as much as
perfect.
Cape Town is a major port city, but otherwise...
Yeah, perfect.
Yes.
Like Liverpool. Liverpool's another port city. I'm wearing a Liverpool t-shirt, that's why I bring it up. Anyhow, we are in a sporting mood. Oh, speaking of Liverpool, speaking of...
You're not in a sporting mood.
Oh, I'm in a sporting mood.
You and like
the
3
Lakers...
other people.
Wait, hold on. Is Neelan in a sporting mood?
I mean, only because I've just watched like the entirety of Welcome to Wrexham, which we'll have to talk about next bonus episode. But
yeah, bonus episode. Exactly. Perfect. So Neelan's in a sporting mood. I'm in a sporting mood. That's a 2-1 vote. We're in a sporting mood collectively. Another reason I'm in a sporting mood is the Lakers just won a nail-biter against the Warriors up 3-1. By the time you listen to this episode, they'll have played the next game, so maybe the Lakers are already through to the next round. So I'm feeling good. Neelan's feeling good. Kellen is dragging us down with his non-sportingness. But we're going to persevere and make this a sporting episode because this is going to be another draft episode. Nothing says sports like a good old draft. So as we progress down the BGG top-rated games, we are going to be doing games 801 through 900 on this episode. If you're not familiar, we're going to be taking turns drafting the games from that section of the BGG top-ranked games list. And then you can vote on whoever you think has drafted the best list at BoardGameBarrage.com/draft. We pick a person out at random every time we do this, and we give them a $50 gift certificate to the gaming outlet of their choice. We've had a couple winners in Australia, right, Kellen?
yeah, it somehow has worked out twice that we had 2 winners in Australia.
They cheat down there.
So regardless of where you're listening, please do vote because you could win $50 to get whatever games you'd like. So again, that is going to be at BoardGameBarrage.com/draft. But we are a ways away from actually doing the draft because we're going to be talking about the games that we played first. Neelan's going to be talking about Paperback Adventures, and then I'm going to be following up with Woodcraft. So Neelan, take us on a Paperback Adventure.
Yeah, so Paperback Adventures was a semi-recently, maybe a little bit earlier this year, fulfilled Kickstarter game. This is a mostly solo, there are some cooperative variants, but this is a mostly solo spin-off of Paperback, which is a word deck builder by Tim Fowers and Fowers Games. Paperback Adventures also has Sky Larson joining the design team, and the premise is taking the word-building card play from Paperback and making a solo roguelike style game. If you're familiar with Slay the Spire, this is very much inspired by that format where you are battling ever-increasing difficulty enemies. They have hit points and attacks, and you are attacking to try to kill them while blocking damage while you have a very limited health pool. So when your health gets to 0, your run is over and you reset all the way back to the beginning. Along the way, you're collecting items, you're upgrading your cards and so on, getting better and stronger and building yourself very specifically down a path in order to be able to overcome the final boss in the game. In Paperback Adventures, this comes in the form of 6 individual fights. There's like a book 1 lackey, a book 1 boss, book 2 and book 3 and so far. And once you have defeated the book 3 boss, that's the end of the run. You've won effectively, which is seemingly a really, really hard thing to do. Structurally, the way that the game plays out is very much like a deck builder. You start with a basic deck of 10 cards, and those 10 cards represent letters. On your turn, you are creating a word using those letters in your hand. The key mechanical difference between Paperback is these cards have icons on either sides of them. So down the left-hand side, there are some icons, and down the right-hand side, there are some icons. Now, typically, the defensive icons are down your left-hand side, and your attack icons are down your right-hand side. And what that means is depending on how you splay those cards, so whether you have the left side overlapping or the right side overlapping, you're revealing either the left-hand set of icons or the right-hand set of icons. So largely you are saying, okay, I'm going to put all my effort into blocking this turn, or my effort into attacking, and the number of symbols is how much damage or how much defense you have. But in addition to that, you have symbols for energy, which are going to determine how much energy you gain on the turn, which is how you utilize items. So there's a little bit of a trade-off between trying to figure out which way you're splaying the cards. The content of the word mostly matters in the context of the first or last letter, because if you splay left, then the leftmost card is going to be on top, and that ability is the one that's going to trigger. Every card has a special ability associated with it as well, if it's either the leftmost or the rightmost of your word, again, depending on whether you splay it left or right. So there's kind of this double-barrel decision being made. Which ability on which card do I want to use? How do I want to arrange the icons? And obviously all of that is restricted by the word you're able to create. You always have a wild card available, so it's a little bit more freeing, but if you use that wild card, you get one less energy for the round. So there's a little bit of a trade-off between only using the cards in your hand or trying to build out a longer word in order to use more icons. You're always able to see what the enemy is going to do next. So every turn breaks down into choosing an attack or choosing what to block, and then immediately following that with the enemy response. And some of these fights get really kind of tricky because you don't have that much health in the grand scheme of things, so you never really can afford to let any damage through. So you're always incentivized to, when the enemy is on the attack, focus on blocking, and when you have an opening, to focus on doing damage. But there are going to be other sort of abilities that are going to be trickling in here. There are separate resources about hexes and boons which can be spent. Hexes are typically negative effects that you're trying to put on the enemy. And on top of all of this, you have a string of unique abilities or core powers that are very specific to your character, which leads me into kind of the way that this is produced and the way that this is kind of being sold. This is very similar to the way that Final Girl has done its production, where you have a core box and a bunch of character boxes. The characters represent you specifically. So the abilities you have, the cards you have access to, in fact, the entirety of your letter deck, because not only your starting deck, but the entire library of letters you have available is nuanced about your character's special abilities, your powers, and that sort of thing, which I thought was quite of a neat touch. So every time you play a character, you kind of have a whole different deck of abilities available.
It's asymmetric because I have the X and you have the Z. It's is that what we're talking about?
I mean, I did not. That's actually interesting because I don't know to what extent they've actually nuanced the letter selection. It's more about the abilities, right? And the icons available. Okay. Yeah, but it would be kind of funny if there was some curatorship being hey, this is a Z heavy character or something like that, which is it's a fun idea. The other thing I think the game does really well is in its production, to some extent. I think it's kind of a lovely thing to unbox. It has these thin plastic, kind of game trays, thin plastic material, which is used for the character and enemy trays. The sorting themselves for the cards is a nice production. There are a lot of great colors used just in all of the components, little metal markers. Every single box, I believe, whether retail or not, comes with sleeves for every card in the game, which is kind of neat.
Oh, so subtract 2 score points from whatever Nealon gives this one as a lover of sleeves.
But unfortunately, it kind of came with one cost to me, which is, and this always hurts a little bit when you have these meticulously produced things, but there's something about the production that doesn't quite work. And in this case, there are these markers that you have to be moving around a lot, these metal markers that are really, really, really snug in the component trays in the way that you kind of have to jam them in and kind of pull them out, and you're moving those constantly. So the idea that they don't quite nestle in the trays well feels hugely detrimental. And that is kind of also I would say the other big downside of this game. It does feel weirdly fiddly, where every single turn you're adjusting markers, you're sort of obviously going through the motions of deck building stuff where you're discarding a card, shuffling your deck. Your deck is very small and doesn't change in size because whenever you gain cards, you're typically replacing one card in your deck. So it's just it's a constant deal of shuffling and reshuffling your discard pile, moving these markers, checking what the enemy is going to do, counting icons, seeing what the differences between those are, making sure that any abilities haven't triggered, and doing that in the physical version can be a little bit tedious. There is also a digital version of this game. Now, I don't know the exact lineage of this, but I did get the sense while playing it that it seemed like a digital game translates to physical. Having all of these markers and numbers and dials is something that is much easily tracked through the digital game. But I was kind of surprised when I turned to the digital game to discover that there are actually some substantive rule differences. You're able to activate any card in the digital version versus just the top card for your ability, which actually changes things in pretty significant ways. It's hard to say that I would recommend this in its physical form, if I'm being perfectly honest. I kind of found the sprawl of this to be a little bit much. I kind of found the time it takes and the fiddliness of it to not really be worth the juice I was getting out of it in terms of just mechanical satisfaction. And to be perfectly honest, the Slay the Spire style of Rogue Builder has never been one that I've felt especially excited about, so I think you kind of have to take that into account when you're factoring in my take on this, where it kind of feels like a variant on a game that I don't have much love for, and the wordiness of it isn't as prevalent as the rest of the mechanics as far as I would like. But perhaps worth trying on digital at the very least.
And so did you have a much better time with digital versus physical given the lack of fiddliness that you get with a digital implementation? Or was it still the whole style of game still didn't really suit you?
I definitely enjoyed it more in digital. So what I'm going to say is going to sound a little bit harsh, but after playing a couple of games in physical, I decided that I probably wasn't going to break it out again physically.
Right.
Having played the digital version, I played it a few more times. It's still not something I think excites me. I feel like I'm going to be stoked to come back to. But your ability to get through games quicker kind of made it feel more like what you want from a roguelike, where you're just kind of going to get through, fail, and restart again. The thought of resetting the game in the physical just every time you fail a run just felt very overbearing to me.
Yeah.
Sorry, to answer your question more succinctly, I'm still not crazy excited about it, even in the digital version, for my taste personally. But I think it definitely works a lot better in that format.
So speaking of differences in formats, and I think you mentioned this, basically if you're buying the physical copy, you're buying a base box, a core box, but you have to, like Final Girl, I think, you have to buy the villains, right? You have to buy the opponents.
So in this case, you're buying your actual player character in the extra boxes. But for what it's worth, that also does include enemies and items and things like that are themed around that box. So it's I guess it's both. It's both, really. I guess like Final Girl, actually.
Yeah, you can't play just on the core box. You have to buy these supplements.
The core box is pretty explicit about that.
And so how is that handled with the digital implementation? It's like you buy a pack and it includes a bunch of...
Yeah, the digital version, I believe, includes 2 packs by default, and then you could just either unlock, I believe, or potentially pay for future packs. I'm actually not sure how it works on that front.
And the last question I had is, one thing I heard about the gameplay is that your word choice can start feeling repetitive. Did you find that at all?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Thank you for bringing them up, because that's actually something that I kind of found very much to be the case, where because you're only drawing 4 cards out of your deck, and your deck is typically only 10 cards, and your opportunities for changing the contents of that deck are fairly few over the course of a game, it kind of feels like sometimes, for example, there is a word I believe I remember seeing in the manual, and I remember drawing the exact letters for that word, because you're only drawing 4 letters, and then you start to feel like, oh, I've made this word before on a previous run, or I've made this word earlier in the game. It does feel like you are frequently just falling back on similar words, or at the very least repeat letters more often than you'd like. Because one of the other systems that I didn't mention is actually every turn you fatigue that top card, which means you're exhausted for the current battle. So your deck is getting thinner and thinner around very specific letters, which doesn't feel like what you would want from a word game, just seeing the same letters come up over and over again.
And are you going to tell us what the word was that was in the manual?
I think it was welt. Okay. W-E-L-T. A good word.
A little bit of a strategy guide, a little bit of strategy tip there for paperback adventure players in the future.
But yeah, it's a little bit disappointing, because I do think that the premise of this was one that I kind of thought I was going to be all over, like a roguelike word game. And I'm a big fan of paperback and hardback, so this one kind of had everything going for it, but kind of fell a little bit flat for me, unfortunately. But that is Paperback Adventures by Tim Fowers and Sky Larson.
So I've had Woodcraft by Vladimir Suchy and Ross Arnold, published by Delicious Games, on my shelf for a little while now. This is Ross Arnold's first game as far as I know, but I am obviously familiar with Suchy's work. I'm a big fan of Shipyard and Underwater Cities, and I really enjoyed Praga, which is one of his newer games. At least I did initially. I've since cooled on it a little bit in subsequent plays. Anyhow, for whatever reason, I couldn't get myself too excited to play Woodcraft, despite hearing good things in general. I think I had a little bit of Euro fatigue, but I recently played Darwin's Journey. That's true, especially you. I know your Euro fatigue bears quite a burden on you. But I recently played Darwin's Journey, which I think I reviewed in the last episode, if not the one before that, which I really enjoyed and sort of reinvigorated my appreciation for the midweight Euro. So, Kellen, maybe I should send you Darwin's Journey and get your blood pumping on that a little bit.
Yeah, you can do that. With a special filing cabinet for it.
Right. Circular filing cabinet. Anyhow, my Euro blood was pumping, so finally got a chance to break Woodcraft out and get it played. In Woodcraft...
If that persists for 4 hours or more, you should see a doctor.
I was waiting when that was going to happen. But, okay, here we go. Let's get your blood flowing here, Kellen, as I explain the theme here.
Yeah, of Woodcraft?
You're a magical forest person of some sort.
Perfect.
And you're wood crafting, you might say, goods for your customers.
That's not terrible for as far as Euros go, to be honest.
That's true. But it is a weird juxtaposition of magical and commercial, but I don't know.
Capitalism,
Anyhow, Yeah, there you go. You're a big capitalist guy. Anyhow, the game basically centers around two main aspects. You've got the action wheel that might seem familiar for those who've played Praga, as well as a dice manipulation system. More about that a little bit later, but first, the action wheel. So the way it works is, again, very similar to Praga. You've got this wheel with different slices representing the different types of actions you can take. And on your turn, you're going to choose one of the slices, you take the associated action, and then you move the slice to the next quadrant clockwise on the wheel. So the actions that fall behind that don't get taken get juicier by way of the way the wheel spins. So the wheel will spin as the most advanced actions get taken, and that will reveal, based on these little cutouts in the wheel, these bonuses you can get if you take the less popular actions. And I had fun with this. A few times in the game, I was wondering if I was better off taking the exact action that I thought was best for me versus an action that I thought was maybe pretty good, but because it had fallen behind and hadn't been taken, would give me bonuses. So there was that decision to make a couple times, which I thought was interesting. You're doing this, obviously, to score victory points, which are called, let's see if this gets Kellen's blood flowing, hazelnuts in this game.
Those are the victory points?
Yeah. And the currency, obviously, blueberries.
Are they squishy blueberries like in Everdell?
They are cardboard.
Then I am not interested.
You really killed my blueberry enthusiasm with that question there, Nealon. Anyway, so the primary way you're scoring these hazelnuts is via this recipe fulfillment system, which is done also, I think, in an interesting way. The recipes, those contracts, come in different difficulties and different rewards. And when you take them, they slot onto this like timer on your board in one of a couple different positions. And every intermediary scoring round that will happen, I think there are 4 or 5 in the game, in which you're not able to fulfill any of the contracts that you have out, will cause those contracts, the outstanding contracts, to slide down. And every time they slide down, the reward for fulfilling them is lessened. And if they slide off your board, if you take too long in fulfilling them, then they result in negative scoring. It isn't like the most amazingly novel thing in the world, but I like the timer aspect where you have to really consider if you're actually going to go for these contracts you're picking up. You can't just like amass contracts to amass them. You have to really know that you're going to be able to do it and do it fairly quickly. What is a bit more novel is the other main mechanism of the game, and that's the way that you're doing most of the recipe fulfillment, which is manipulating the dice. The dice come in 3 different colors, representing 3 different types of wood, and it's a game where recipe fulfillment or contract fulfillment needs to be exact. So if I have a contract that says I need a 1 green and a 2 yellow and a 3 yellow, I need to have exactly that combination of colors and numbers. I can't have like a higher value for it to work. And so the way you make sure you get a number right on the dot is through this manipulation, this dice manipulation that I was talking about. And you're doing that thematically by slicing the wood into smaller parts. So if I have a big chunky 6 yellow, I can slice it into like a 4 and a 2. Or, again, thematically, by gluing pieces of wood together. So if I have a 3 brown and a 1 brown, I can glue them and make a 4 brown.
So the dice represent wood is what you're saying.
Yeah, they represent different sizes of wood and like
fantastic
types of wood.
This is exactly what I needed me to get over the mechanical hurdle of this.
You were out with the blueberries, you're back in with the gluing.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Perfect. I love to hear that.
I don't know, man. Telling me you collect blue balls to score hazelnuts in a game called Woodcraft.
Nice. I like it. I like what you did there. That's great. That's great.
I didn't do anything. This is your description.
That's true. It is my fault. So anyway, this exacting nature of recipe fulfillment is sort of the hallmark of the game in general, which itself feels quite exacting and tight. Money/blueberries and the dice contracts are really hard to come by. And the game only lasts 14 rounds, which I felt was a lot when I was setting it up. And I saw this like turn track that was 14 rounds long. I was like, God, how long is this game going to take? But you only get 1 action per round. So it's only 14 actions during the course of the entire game. And that in itself is really tight. You don't really have much room to fool around. Now, I will say I've seen people say that they think the game is exceptionally tight. I've seen that in some reviews and some people talking about the game. I wouldn't go that far. I don't think it's like excruciating in terms of like the scarcity of resources, but it definitely feels like a game where you won't be able to do everything you want, which I absolutely appreciate. I love games like that. So all that said, I really did enjoy Woodcraft. It is a mid-weight, low interactive Euro, but it's tough and tight in a way that I like those kind of Euros to be. If I don't have to be worrying about other players getting in my way, though there is a little bit of that with like players taking actions and making them less appealing for you or taking contracts that you want out from under you. But if there's not going to be much of that, I want the game to be really stingy in giving me what I need to make my engine work. And I think that is the case in Woodcraft. Speaking of the contract cards, I have also seen some discussion about how the luck factor might be coming into play based on what contracts come out and how they might like just randomly synergize with some players better than others. I can see how that might be the case, but it hasn't really come up very much in our games. At least people haven't really complained about it. So I don't think it's that big of a factor, but maybe something to consider if you're ultra adverse to that kind of thing. Anyway, all in all, really liked Woodcraft. A more or less straight down the middleweight Euro, but another one I think done really well, much like Darwin's Journey, with just enough interesting twists with that whole wheel thing and the way the contracts work and the timing of those, and of course the slicing and the gluing, that I'm looking forward to playing it again. That is Woodcraft by Ross Arnold, Vladimir Suchi, and Delicious Games.
Where does this fall on like the sushi scale, as it were? Because I have to be honest, like I might get a
The
bit sushi
sushi
scale. I'm kind of exactly.
Yeah,
The sushi
this is
scale.
between nigiri and no.
I ask because, and I will get eviscerated for this, I'm like 0 for 2 with sushi with Underwater Cities and Pulsar, so I'm kind of curious if this would be something that would be worth checking out.
I'm not familiar enough with Pulsar. I like Underwater Cities. This doesn't really feel Underwater Cities-esque. I'm trying to figure a game that is a good analogy. I mean, a good analogy is Praga to some extent.
Which you were pretty high on, right?
I was high on initially. I've played it a couple times since
that's
then,
right,
and have liked it, but it's definitely has fallen a notch. I don't think there's any way that you won't at least like this.
Okay.
What was it about Underwater Cities that didn't work for you, if you can recall?
I've kind of mentioned this before, but I found it overly convoluted versus the decisions-based.
Yeah, I think this is more straightforward. This feels way more middleweight to me. I think Underwater Cities is a little heavier. And again, the way the gears are working, as I think you're talking about, does feel a little more Lacerda-y. But I don't think that's the case in Woodcraft. I don't think it's going to be anybody's favorite game of all time, but it's a very solid midweight Euro, just really well done. And I think, again, the dice manipulation is interesting. And also the way you do action selection is pretty cool, too. So
Just got to buy some squishy blueberries to replace the cardboard ones.
yeah, that's right. That's the one thing you need to do. You need to really pimp the blueberries. All right. Before we get sporting and move on to doing the draft of games 801 through 900 on the BGG top games of all time list, another reminder here that we have set up boardgamebarrage.com/topics. If you ever wanted to hear us talk about something and you have any ideas for upcoming shows, feel free to go to boardgamebarrage.com/topics. We're always looking forward to answering the questions or talking about things that our listeners want to hear us talk about. So we are very receptive to anybody who goes to boardgamebarrage.com/topics and contributes show ideas or thoughts on what we could do. In addition, another way to help us out, if you're not going to give us ideas, is to review the show, primarily through Apple Podcasts. So yeah, go ahead and give us a review. That really helps heighten the awareness of the show. And to be frank and honest with you, it makes me feel good whenever we see a positive review. So that is, enthusiasm buoyer for me. That's what you call it, right? An enthusiasm buoyer?
Exactly. Or buoyer, as you would say here. We pronounce buoy weird. Buoy? Boy,
oh, you pronounce
buoy.
it. Okay, I thought you were saying I pronounce it weird.
No.
Not the case. Yeah, I pronounce
Well, I mean, you do. It's us that pronounce it the correct way, to be clear.
So yes, boardgamebarrage.com/topics if you want to hear us talk about what you are thinking about or review the show, primarily on Apple Podcasts, but we'll take reviews wherever we can get them. All right. On to the draft. So on today's episode, we're going to be drafting games that are currently, as of May 8th, ranked between 801 and 900 on the BGG top games of all time list. We've gone through these in 100 game chunks since we're at the 9th installment, which is 801 through 900. In the last draft we had, Nealon dominated, much to his surprise, I should add, but also mine. And I finished. Did I finish last? I'm pretty sure I finished last.
Yeah.
I think that's correct, yeah.
I don't know what's going on. I'm so desperate. I want 2 wins in a row, but I'll take 2 strong showings. I feel like I either win these or finish dead last. My calibration is so out of whack.
We can tell that you're desperate. They can tell.
How do we do this? We have whoever finished last pick.
Yeah, whoever last picks their place first, whether they're going to be at the beginning or the end of the snake.
Or in the middle. Yeah. Okay, so as the big loser last time around, I get to pick where I'm going to be drafting And I'm not seeing any like standouts here. Maybe I'm mistaken. So I'm going to stick to getting the tail end of the snake. So I'm going to pick third. I want to go ahead and keep my third pick. So Callan, do you want to pick second or first?
Oh, boy. I'm happy to be in the middle. That way I don't have to ever pick twice in a row. That's too much pressure for me. I'm kind of right in the middle of the pack.
So Nealon gets the first pick. First pick of 5.
Neil and Kel and Mark were going the exact same order we did last time, Mark, that led to your amazing 16% result asterisk down to 15 now that we saw that you voted for yourself.
And that is surprisingly stressful because looking at the makeup of this list and noting that I won't get another pick until the 6th spot is very scary.
Yeah, Neil.
But shall we get right into it?
Before you pick.
Yeah.
I'll trade you my second pick.
Oh, I like this. Do it. Come on.
For your last 2 picks. So you get to pick the first 2, but then you only get to pick... just your last pick. Then you only get to pick 4 games. And
No. Thank you. I'm good. Actually,
okay,
kind of tempting, actually, but no.
Nealon, I'll trade you my first pick in this draft, but then I get your
What
second
are you
and third pick in the next draft.
No, I'm actually good because I think to me there are 2 standouts in this list, and I don't think I would want both of them. So I am going to go with my first pick, which to me is, I think, easily the best game on this list. By some margin, it is, of course, by the good Dr. Rainer Knizia. It is a very recent, very much loved, and I happen to know that this is very loved in our Discord as well. I have played this a fair bit in the last year after not really playing it that much close to its release. I remember us playing a game of it with the 4 of us and not returning to it for a while despite wanting to. But Babylonia is a excellent little semi-abstract tile-laying game where you're accumulating points in a variety of different ways by massing your people around ziggurats, around cities in order to dominate scoring of them. It's very competitive. It's very tight. It's very cutthroat. It kind of has aspects of Blue Lagoon and Through the Desert where you kind of feel like you're cutting off other people's routes and territories in a way that just feels very satisfying in a competitive sense. I've enjoyed this at 2-player, I've enjoyed it at 3-player, and at 4-player, and I think it is excellent. That's Babylonia, my first pick.
It's like, I can't tell if he's daring me, Mark. This is like chess, This is the Babylonia opening, and he's trying to see if I'll call in response with Blue Lagoon and split the difference, and then Mark's going to win the whole draft because we're going directly against each other with classic, new, amazing Rainer Knizia tile-laying games.
Yeah, I think picking the slightly worse of the 2 might be a good move for you, Callan, so...
You like Blue Lagoon better than Babylonia, you liar.
That is not true. I think Babylonia has replaced Blue Lagoon for me.
When did this happen? You're just like making this up on the spot. You've been a Blue Lagoon stan for years. I thought up until you said I thought up until you said Babylonia, I was like, this is surely Blue Lagoon. Surely he's double the votes on BoardGameGeek, and I'm taking that gambit. Nealon, Blue Lagoon, my first pick of the draft. A better, more loved, more battle-tested version of Babylonia. Why get a game that just came out when you could get a game that came out 1 year prior to that game in 2018? Blue Lagoon, battle-tested, double the ratings. This is a great, beautiful production game. Much lower cost than Babylonia. Babylonia is coming in at 40 or 50 quid. That's the thing, right? What is quid?
Yep.
That's dollars.
That's pounds, but sure.
It's okay. Nealon sometimes win these drafts because of his accent, okay? And so
true.
I figure if I come in with some of these words, I'll get a little international man of mystery.
I love this.
Blue Lagoon you can get for $15, okay? And there are very cute pastel color palette little huts. There's 2 phases to this game, so if you like Mark, you'll like this game. Blue Lagoon is my first pick. It is actually, honestly, no lie, no what I thought Nealon was going to draft until he said the word Babylonia. Mark, are you aligned with me?
I'm with you. Yes, we're joining forces on this.
Yeah.
Are we going to say here definitively that Babylonia is not a better game than Blue Lagoon, Kellen?
Oh, my section's over. Now it's Mark's turn.
Blue Lagoon won Board Game Barrage Game of the Year back in, 2019 or whatever, so...
Yeah, my clock has run out. They've played me off, so go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I actually am instantly regretting my decision to go third now because I feel like pickings are already slim so early on. Oh, boy. What do the people want? What do the people want? I'm just trying to empathize. I'm trying to connect with the...
They want confidence. Stop with this desperation.
I tried confidence before. I tried, unsubstantiated confidence before, and it didn't work. It blew up in my face. I thought I was going to win the last one in a walk. I ended up with 15% now that Kellen docked me another percentage. Okay, what do the people... If I was one of the people, what would I want? Okay. I'm a man of the people. Okay. God, I have no confidence in this. God. I have absolutely no confidence in this. Okay. So the first game I'm going to go with, clear choice. Easy pick here. Because not only is it me making the choice, but this was highly regarded by our friends at Shut Up and Sit Down. Fantastic game of intrigue. Kellen's into intrigue and backstabbing. This game gives you all of that. Hidden information, what side are you on? So for my first pick, I'm going to go with War of Whispers. War of Whispers.
I think that's a good pick. That's a loved game that,
much beloved game.
Much beloved game, definitely. Beloved. And actually one that we had a lackluster first play of it, but I would like to return to it. I think it was intriguing.
Yeah, it's fun if you only care about the last round of a game and nothing that comes before it matters at all.
Every game I've had of it has been thrilling to the very end. Absolutely thrilling. And for my next pick, for my first pick of the second round, I'm obviously going to go with the clear choice here. The clear choice.
Oh, now there's a 5-minute pause, dear listener.
I'm going to cut out.
Don't forget, I'm going to start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if anything is cut, you'll know. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
okay.
10.
I'm going to go with
12.
I'm going to go 13, with. I'm talking. I got it. I'm on the runway. I'm going to go with, I think, probably my favorite game on this list. I'm taking it personal again. I don't know why I'm doing this. I should be a man of the people, but I'm going to go personal. And I think one of my favorite games on this list is Signorie. I think of the games on this list, it's the one that I've played probably the most and one that I've enjoyed the most. A game where you are building a tableau and you are selecting dice of different colors to activate different sorts of abilities, but you have this push-pull where the higher dice will give you access to greater abilities, but if you are able to keep all the dice you selected around under a certain threshold, you get bonuses. It's a game that's very tight, available to play on BGA. I don't know if I mentioned that, and a fun game to play on BGA as well. Yeah, my favorite game of the games left on the list, so I'm going to go Signorie with my first pick of the second round.
Yeah, this wouldn't have even been in my top 20, so that's interesting. But I like the passion, Mark. I am going to pick what? I just love talent. I'm going to go against my better judgment here. One of the things that I worry about is that the listeners value stuff. You know what I mean? That it's if I could get Frosthaven and Gloomhaven and 17 more boxes, that would be better than getting 5 super good games. But I am going to go straight to what might be the most popular game on the list. That is The Mind. The Mind is a classic at this point party game that works ultra well for groups of friends and as an icebreaker activity. This is a game where you are communicating with everyone else without communicating, and you are trying to play cards. It never has failed for me. It's always worked. It is much beloved, and a game that I think if I got down to 10 or 15 or 20 games would probably be one I kept around just for an icebreaker activity for new groups of people. There are a lot of party games on this list of 800 to 900, but I do think that the value is there. The Mind is that good of a game, The Mind.
Yeah, I definitely considered this. I'm just a little worried that it feels like a very divisive game. I feel like some people who are like, this is not a game.
Yeah, that's true.
But you probably get enough people who are big fans of it that it's worth it to pick it. But I certainly was considering myself, so That's a good pick.
Okay, so I'm a little bit surprised that Mark didn't pick this, because I know it is one of his favorite games. I'm not surprised at all that Kellen didn't pick it, but Pictomania is one of my absolute favorite games. I think this is despite being stressful, which is actually what I love about it, it's it's an accessible game. Like if you've played Pictionary, you can play Pictomania. Whether you are going to like it or not is going to depend very specifically on how much you can handle the unique stress that Pictomania throws at you, where you're guessing and drawing simultaneously. But this has been a staple of my top 50 since we've been doing the podcast. If anything, it's the one game that just seems to be edging up higher and higher and higher into my top 10 in recent years, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I will never get tired of playing it. I will especially be energized from playing it against Mark, because we get very uniquely competitive in this. It's so creative, and the sorts of words you're trying to describe are especially abstract as the game progresses. I actually debated for a long time whether the second edition was an improvement over the first edition, but regardless, I think the first edition is so close as for it not to matter. A fantastic version of this game, one I absolutely adore. Pictomania as my second pick. My third pick is a little bit newer, so it's a little bit harder, but I desperately want to have some sort of fighty area control game on this, and I think that the buzz around Boru, a game admittedly that I have not played yet, but one that I'm very, very excited to play because of the way that it seems to intermingle trick-taking card play with an area control system, is very intriguing to me, and I know that this already is getting a lot of love and a lot of buzz, especially in our Discord. So this is kind of more like a newer aspirational game that I think a lot of people would be very excited to play more of or own if they've not tried it yet. That is Boru for my third pick.
I considered it. It's definitely my short list, but actually the reason I didn't take it is because I feel like the buzz was like very hot and then nothing. Maybe there's talk on the Discord that I've been missing, but I feel like it sort of has fizzled out. But I enjoyed it. I played it a couple times and enjoyed it.
All right. I am excited to draft the next game. I feel like it is an old game that is getting new buzz and has over 5,000 ratings on BoardGameGeek. This is the classic fighty Euro auction game Santiago. This one is one that I'm worried because we don't cover it on the podcast a lot, but this plays in an hour, and it is a hilarious mixture of auctions and negotiation where I don't remember exactly how the round works, but essentially you're bidding on crops, but then the person who either bids the lowest or bids the worst gets to control the canals which water all the crops, and so then you have to bribe the canal operator to get your crops watered and score points. It plays in an hour. It is fight and feisty. I hear people talk about this in the same sort of breath that they talk about games like El Grande, and I've started to see it pop up more and more as one that people go back to all the way in 2003. So this is a classic Euro at this point. I think there was a new edition that recently came out. I'm seeing some new art on BGG that I have not seen before, and one that I think that if we all played together, we would absolutely adore, no question. Mark, you've played Santiago, I assume.
Yeah. And this is definitely, I think, one of the better games on the list for sure. And it's also on my short list, but the thing that kept me away from it is just, I have also seen some buzz, but I just don't know how many people are that aware of it, because it was like an old game that for a while there. Yeah, good pick in terms of quality of game. I just don't know if there's enough behind it and enough buzz behind it.
Nealon is catching, the cult of the new as it's falling away from him, and I'm here to prop up the old winners. So I'm happy with that position, even if I get spit on for doing it.
Okay, back to me for the last pick of the third round. And I'm going to throw a lighter game in here right now. And of the light games, and as Kellen said, there are a number of party weight games here on this section of the list. But the one I'm going to go with is Werewords, the game that inspired The Insider.
Don't.
And
you want to send me into a rage so that I couldn't even draft anymore.
I'm trying to get Kellen on tilt here so he could make some mistakes. But joking aside, obviously it was inspired by Insider. And it's a game that I have played a number of times, 20, 30 times probably, with gamers, with non-gamers, and I've always had fun. It's Werewolf plus 20 questions. And yeah, just very easy to teach. You can teach anybody and always have a good time with it. So that's my contribution to the lighter end of things. And then with the first pick of the fourth round, I'm torn between two games that I think sort of fit the same bill here. I'm going to go with, I think, the one that's maybe a little more popular. So I'm going to go Battle of Rokugan on this one. An area control sort of fighty game where you draw a number of different potential orders behind your screen and sort of simultaneous play. One of those interesting decisions, but sort of low rule set, low time commitment that I think does the area majority fighty genre of game pretty well. So my first pick of the fourth round is going to be Battle for Rokugan.
I'm very jealous of your Werewords pick. I think that would have been one of my next ones.
How do you feel about Battle for Rokugan?
I think it's a good pick. It does fill a role that is underrepresented on the list of the fighty troops in the map games.
Do you want to concede at this point?
I do not.
Okay.
Yeah, our pick's still up for trade. No, I had Battle for Rokugan as a short list. I do feel like its status as out of print, it's sort of become a little bit of a mini grail for people, and like whether that helps or hurts is like an interesting discussion that we could have. But what I'm finding is just the lack of like new modern Euros that get the sort of Euro heads Euroing. And I don't know how I can throw them a bone if there's just nothing here for them. I mean, there's not nothing, but there's just stuff I know nothing about as a human being. I think I should just draft Weather Machine and get it over with. All right. I am going to pick a game I have not played, which is unusual for me, but I need a more quintessential-esque Euro game. And so what do? I turn to designers that I know and love. One, Paolo Mori, to draft Vasco da Gama. This is a game where you guys have played Vasco da Gama. Someone help me.
I have not. I've heard really good things about it. I know Tom Vassell hammered it. Tom Vassell, if you're a fan of Tom Vassell, you know that he hates this game. He has a very famous negative review, so I think anybody listening should take that into account when voting.
Yeah.
But I've frankly heard have heard really good things about it, but I've not played it yet.
No.
Tom Vassell hates it. Tom Vassell?
Okay, well...
Pillar of the board gaming community, Tom Vassell?
Yeah, exactly. Been around forever. If you hate Tom Vassell, you hate board games. So by transitive property, if you like Vassell...
This is action selection. This is worker placement. This is super clever. People compare this to Kalis, Paolo Mori. Let me just keep scrolling through the BGG comments until we find something else that's good about this. No, I'm super happy. I know... so much to keep track of. It's a tough game. This is a Euro game. We need a Euro game on this list. Vasco da Gama. It's intense. A lot of phases. This person said, I don't know what Tom Vassell is smoking. This is an excellent game.
How dare they?
The answer to that is Christianity. Moving on.
Okay, I'm coming in with my fourth and fifth picks, which kind of means that these are going to, well, it definitely means these will be the last picks. So let me just make sure that there's nothing here that I don't want to make sure I don't have, given that I have sort of the run of the board for the end game here. Yeah, I think that these next two games, I think, round out my list very nicely. The first pick I'm going to go with is a game that I'm a little bit apprehensive of, but like Brian Boru, I'm very, very excited to play. I've just never gotten around to it. This is a Mind Clash game. Mind Clash, I love their games. The high production, great thematic tie to like the way that the game works. That is kind of what Mind Clash is all about. And Cerebria, the Inside World, is a 2v2 heavy team game that I know just gets a lot of love. Something about the idea of like a strictly, or at least in its most desirable variant, like strictly 2v2 team game is very, very interesting to me. The idea thematic is you're sort of manipulating emotions of a person in order to have certain aspects of their personality win out over others. And I've just always loved the way that this seems to blend like heavy sort of systems with area control in a 2v2 team game in a way that just feels super, super compelling to me. I know that this game gets a lot of love, and I'm hoping that's going to carry it. That is Cerebria, the Inside World, as my first of two. And then my final pick, this one I'm definitely a little bit less sure about, but I happen to love this, and I do think that it captures a genre that's definitely not my list and kind of is fairly unique to the list as a whole, which is Bullet Heart. Bullet Heart is a real-time puzzle game that's kind of designed in the vein of... Help me out here, Kellen.
Schmumps?
Yes, thank you. that is kind of
how do you say that word out loud?
Shmups, I think, is how I've always said it, at least.
Never heard of that word in my life.
Which is designed in the vein of shoot 'em up video games where you are you have incoming, in this case, bullets coming into your board that are being sent there by other players. And as you sort of complete line, you're sending your discs to the other player, and whoever's board fills up first is the loser. So it is a game of a process of elimination until you're the last person standing in sort of like a puzzle real-time board game form. I've had so much fun playing this. Like, this is a game that pre-launch I had a lot of fun playing on Tabletop Simulator. Post-launch I've just enjoyed like the physicality of the components. Pulling discs out of bags and sending them over to your other player is always just fun to do, to watch them crumble as you do especially well. That is Bullet Heart.
Yeah, it's crazy how niche the list gets. And suddenly you wonder if you're like picking a 1 game or a 2 game like voter, you know? Because it's like the person who likes Bullet Heart is not potentially going to like Cerebria. I know I'm not saying that. Like, they're both
totally
really interesting picks as like anchors that people might like, but it is so hard to evaluate like why someone is winning these votes versus others. But to be fair, Neelan, I think, has the best winning percentage, and Mark has clearly cheated the most. For my 5th pick, I am debating between my heart and the amount of ratings a game has on BoardGameGeek. It's really when you look at the 5th spot, I start reading the games, and then I read both of them, and I just see what feels right, you know? And sometimes my heart goes cold. For that reason, I'm happy to draft with my last pick, Incan Gold, a classic, absolute stone cold classic, push your luck game that works with groups ranging, I think it plays 3 to 8, probably best at 4 to 8, also known as Diamant. I would say that this is perfect. The whole thing is go into a cave, leave the cave when you so choose, and split the booty with anyone else who is leaving the cave when you leave. So it's a lot of, are you going to leave the cave? I'm not going to leave the cave. Are you going to leave the cave? I have many memories of even playing this with Neelan in the first year of my time at a board game group that we played in. I think that pound for pound, I can't think of a push your luck game that beats
quid
this.
Quid for quid. You mean quid for quid?
Quid for quo. Even including, Oink favorite Deep Sea Adventure. Incan Gold, a game I'm very, very happy to round out my collection of 5 with.
Yeah, I think that's solid. I think that was something I was definitely considering for that 4-5 spot as well.
Yeah, it's like Incan Gold has way more mass appeal than Cerebria or Bullet Heart, but Bullet Heart pulls, or Cerebria will pull single issue voters. That's what I'm saying. You're getting these people who are just love Bullet Heart or love Mind Clash, and they're like, Kellen and his baby games.
All right, it's me to end this. I'm once again torn.
There's a lot of war games, Mark.
Yeah, that has not served me well in my past.
Well, people love the Undaunted series, so that wins best war game every year.
That's true.
So think about
it. And if there is no Undaunted, I'd pick a.
I know, that's what I'm saying. These people need to be educated with war games, and I think you should use this as a crusade.
I would chop my right arm off for an Undaunted right about now. But there's a couple different ways I'm going. Since I'm the last pick, I'll talk about them right now. So I'm thinking, what my heart says Tribune, but I think Tribune is too old. I know there's a new edition of it, but it's a really fun worker placement game. I know Mark from So Very Wrong loves it. I've enjoyed my plays of it. I'm thinking Rurik as a potential choice for me. I think it's the most interesting of the game that's left over. I also have Letter Jam, but I think that's probably too niche to work. But I think, look, I'm going for a game for the people, right? For the people. That's what I'm all about. What I've always been about, being for the people. And so for my last pick, I'm going to go with the game that makes the most people happy, and that is Railroad Inc. is going to be my last pick.
Okay.
Railroad Inc.
You can't pick all of them, right? You're picking the one in the spot. Am I wrong?
I'm just telling people what I've considered. However they take that is up to them.
You're drafted Railroad Inc. Challenge Lush Green Edition.
Okay.
Marijuana.
I drafted Railroad Inc. I also thought about Tribune, Rurik, and Letter Jam.
That's not how
you
this
didn't
works
draft
out.
this?
No, I did draft. I drafted Railroad Inc., but I also considered heavily.
But factor in the one that Mark was thinking about as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't say that. You're saying whatever you want to say. You're putting words in my mouth. I'm saying I thought about it heavily, strongly. Tribune, Rurik, Letter Jam. I thought about all these games. I even thought about Weather Machine for what it's worth. But the one I'm picking is Railroad Inc.
Railroad Inc. Challenge,
Railroad Inc.
Lush Green Edition.
Is the game I'm picking.
What are you?
It is the best roll and write game ever made, clearly. Revolutionized the field. I mean, it's a very clogged field, but I think when Railroad Inc. came out, it was in such demand that they made a green edition, a red edition, a yellow edition, blue edition. They're running out of colors at this point because of how much people want variations.
Tell us your favorite part about Lush Green Edition.
My favorite part, I can answer this. It's how connected to nature I feel when I play it.
Yeah.
I am building a railroad, so I feel like the steel and the, all that. But I do feel with the lush green of it,
how green
I'm really like,
yeah.
I feel like I'm also working with the environment. So that's my pick, Railroad Inc. If you like any of those versions, I would suggest you vote for me.
Oh, my God.
And so that's going to do it for our draft. Let's review our picks. Neelan, you want to go through yours?
Yeah, sure. Mine are Babylonia, Pictomania, Brian Boru, Cerebria, The Inside World, and Bullet Heart.
I just want to clarify for the listener that there were 2 colons in Neelan's list. So
sorry, Brian Boru, High King of Ireland.
Yeah. If you want to be associated with a colon person, being a Poland person, then vote for Neelan, but I don't know if I'd want to be that.
All right. I drafted Blue Lagoon, The Mind, Santiago, Vasco da Gama, and Incan Gold.
Very South American flavor with yours.
That's right. There's a theme. The theme is winning and South America.
And for my picks, I had the much beloved by Shut Up, Sit Down, War of Whispers. I had Signorie. I had My Mom Loves Werewords, so if you're a fan of her, vote for that. Battle for Rokugan, the Grail game. If you can't have it, at least vote for it. And while I considered, again, Tribune, Rurik, Letter Jam, also Weather Machine, I did go with the Railroad Inc. collection as my last pick.
Lush Green Edition.
If any of those speak to you, then I think it's clear who you should vote for. And you should make those votes at BoardGameBarrage.com/draft. Again, we are going to be picking somebody at random, and we are going to be giving you a $50 gift certificate to a board game retailer of your choice. So again, BoardGameBarrage.com/draft. So that's going to do it for the draft. That's going to do it for the episode. Go out and vote. You can find us on all forms of social media. You can email us at boardgamebarrage@gmail.com. You should also join our Discord where people discuss the current week's episode. And so there's usually a lot of discussion after drafts about how many mistakes we'd made and how if we'd only drafted Yido, we would have had the person's votes. I like to look at the podcast channel the day after draft and just feel like a complete moron. So looking forward to that. You can make me feel like a moron at BoardGameBarrage.com/Discord. A big thank you as always to Heart Society for our intro and outro song, What's on Your Mind, Kid? And until next week, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You put your mic down?
Yes.
Neelan? Okay. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. That sounded like you guys were in sync and I was early, but it all works out in the wash. Okay.
They have pills for that.
I'm au naturel. Anyhow, here we go. Hello and welcome to episode 276.
I see. Now I know your tricks. Mark, I see that you voted in the last draft 701 to 800. I see a mark in here. So your 16.9% is actually even lower than that.
Wait, when did I vote? I voted, was it like the first to test it out?
No, it just says that a Mark voted in the last list.
Oh, okay. Okay, another Mark. I got you.
I'm making fun of you that your name's so common.
And we are going to be giving you a $50 gift certificate to a board game realtor, retailer of your choice. So again, BoardGameBarrage.com/draft.